Importance of statistics can be understood by the popularity of these concepts. Statistics is the most essential and important part of our everyday life. Statistics are used by the students and the professionals as well to understand our data points intuitively. To keeping in mind the importance of the statistics, we came up with a tutorial of probability distribution, which is the base of the statistics. In today's session, we will have a look at what is probability distribution and how can we implement probability distribution using Python. Let's get started.
Okay, we'll start now. I propose to do the following. One application of Bayes theorem, cash flows and all that. Little more involved exercise where you may have to read additional material if possible on your own. They're all there. You can do it as a group assignment, because one of the aims of the group assignment is something a little extra that was not done in the class, maybe 20%, but 80% done in the class, where group learning and collaborative learning we encourage, that the group can discuss and do that. So one interesting problem I will pick up, I think Winston Albright's book is a beautiful problem. Normally I take a non-worked out example from a book to avoid obviously certain problems later. Second, I enjoy doing those problems myself. So we will see how you handle, and then probably we'll post the solution also later. Before we go into probability distribution, which is also part of probability, I just want to spend 10 minutes or so in clarifying this table and this problem so that nobody has an iota of doubt. First of all, if you see the problem here, 40% chance of striking oil. When somebody also outside said, our friends, their face is very familiar face, and the symbols and all that, how do you? They're explaining the problem perspective beforehand, and using some of them there is greater clarity. That is the very valid point. So let me explain this problem to you. The first paragraph says a drilling company has estimated a 40% chance of striking oil. Is only estimated. That is why it is called probability. Is a 40% probability means it can be an estimate only based on data. So striking oil, you call it a successful, because successful wells means oil must be there. If India can strike a lot of oil, instead of America giving you green card, you can give some violet card or red card. Everybody will come here. All the Americans will sit here. It becomes the richest country, then no problem. And it will be, so oil, striking oil is a success. How much? Again yield and barrels and all that. So I represent S is equal to successful. US is unsuccessful. So probability of S, I take it as 0.4. There is a 40% probability of success. Is it clear? Therefore, probability that you will not be successful, that is unsuccessful, is 0.6. I write this. And they are called the facts of the case. First of all, when you have got a case study or problem, do not solve the problem. Write down all the facts of the case verbally, even without symbol. You stand to gain. Just to write all the facts given faithfully. Then you put some symbols as you like. But facts, this is given, which is evidenced here. Then the case says something about performing detailed test. No detailed test. If you look at ONGC, I have done some programs earlier, much more complex programs. Soil analysis they will do, geologists will do, and find out whether conditions are favorable for oil exploration or drilling. Cost of drilling will be $10. 800 meters they will drill. and if they don't strike oil, there is a probability you will strike oil so much. If they don't strike oil, you will drill further 200 meters, whether to drill or not, there is a question. After 200 meters further drilling, what is the probability of striking oil? All these things are very relevant. So, detailed test is something like a geologist performing soil analysis and giving you conditions. Now the question is, should I do the detailed test or not? When will I do the detailed test? I have some prior knowledge, 40% success rate. Supposing I do a detailed test beforehand, and then my success rate could improve because it will tell me whether this place is worth or some other place. Supposing the detailed test says there is only 30% chance you will strike oil, this Andaz number 40 also is not useful, I may not go. Suppose I don't do any detailed test and I take a risk and then I find the well is a dry well, no oil. Therefore, the decision is whether to have a detailed test. I will do only if it is going to improve my striking rate. So, detailed test and no detailed test. So, what they did was, earlier 60 wells have been subjected to detailed test. So, what it says is 60 wells have been subjected to detailed test. That means there are 60 wells where they are given 60 wells, detailed test was performed. So, detailed test given success is 60.6. 20% of the unsuccessful wells are also have been subjected to detailed test. That is given. These two are given. In other words, probability of successful, unsuccessful, probability of detailed test given success, detailed test given unsuccess, they are all known to us. They are all known to us, given facts. That's the first thing you have to write. Do you have any doubt on that? I am just stating now. I am not doing any analysis. I am just stating them. Is it clear, sir? Now the slash, if you don't like, you put DT given S, you write. In other words, detailed test given successful wells. No, not the other way. You read the question. 60% of the successful wells have been subject to detailed test. That means 60% successful wells have already been subjected to detailed test. You are not saying successful given detailed test. No. The wells have been successful. Sir, now just see the question. 60% of the successful wells, they are already successful. Given they are successful, no sir, no. Given they are successful, they have still performed a detailed test. To know whether the detailed test is effective or not, they have just done that. So look at the last para of the question. Given that this well has been scheduled for a detailed test, what is the probability it will be successful? So what you want is, what is the probability of success given a detailed test has been performed? That is a question that is asked. What you have got here information is, a detailed test has been scheduled. Historically, 60 successful wells, I performed detailed test to know the efficacy. 20 unsuccessful wells, I picked up and performed detailed test. That means the wells have already been chosen there. Given successful wells, detailed test is made. What we want is, what is success given detailed test? What we are given is, detailed test given success is 60. In other words, if you have to paraphrase this, 60% of 40. That is the joint probability. You forget the symbols. 60% of 40 wells, detailed test was done. 20% of 60 wells, detailed test is done. So this 24 and 12 are the multipliers. Just like saying 40% of 60%, 60% of 40%. So let me explain this to you. The wording has to be confusing so that you don't make a mistake. Type 1 error or type 2 error in statistics, we say we should understand that statement in the perspective. The hint that is given is, what is the question? Second, why should I do a detailed test? I do a detailed test only if it is going to help me improve striking rate. Therefore, I am interested in the success rate here to go beyond 40%. Then it is worth. So, success given detailed test, is it bigger than 40%? I have to find out. So, success given detailed test, if it is already given, the problem is solved. I don't need it. We can take a tomato soup and go home. Success. In other words, I will give you another analogy. Market research you do. I have some record about a market research agency. Let's say Mark or IMRB or AC Nielsen. Nielsen facing success, given the product is a success, how many times? I have. But what I want is, will my product be successful given Nielsen says success? The question says, will there be a successful operation given detailed test is done? You have done the detailed test. Now I find out the striking rate of the oil. If out of 100 wells, 67 wells benefited by detailed test, then it is success given detailed test is performed. That is the last part. And if you look at this paragraph carefully, simple English, let's not read something. In law they say, I thought it is like this. There is nothing like I thought. We have to simply interpret the language. Only the law, only that interpretation. So if you simply look at this here, historically, give a pass now. 60% of the successful wells, the wells are already been successful. Detailed test given successful. That's how it has come. Historically, 60% of the successful wells, there are 100 wells, I have picked up 60 successful wells. Yeah, exactly. And the detailed test was done only to know in future, if I do detailed test for a particular well which has not been designated, for the future, should I employ them? Just like market research agency, should I employ them for a new product? I have already had lot of new products, some are successful, some are not successful, I have some data with me. Now I want to improve my success rate, should I go to him? Then what I do is, what this fellow has done in the past, there were 10 successful products, but his recommendation is a failure, is predicted wrongly. So, agency success given success, agency failure given success, how many times they are wrong? Agency failed given fail, agency says failure given it is a success. They work out. That is the same thing shamelessly we are doing here. Imagine this, detailed test given success is 0.6. I will ask you, detailed test given success is 0.6. If you don't do detailed test given success, it will be 0.4. Similarly, detailed test given unsuccessful is 20%. If I don't do detailed test given unsuccessful, it will be 80%. So, what I am saying, first state all the facts of the case. Okay? State all the facts of the case. Then I look at the final outcome question. These two are derivative of this. Because if I know this, this is known. This is also given. This is all. I am not doing anything new except to say it is 40. The question that is asked is probability of successful operation given a detailed test is performed is how much? That is a question that is asked. Am I right? So far, I have just given you all the facts and raised this question, which is the last para. I am supposed to solve this. If the solution is better than 40%, okay, my dear friend. And that question doesn't ask that. What is the probability it is a successful? It's not asking, but I am saying, what is the use of this? If this rate is more than 0.4, it helps me. You get the point? Now, let me come back. So, identify the application as a Bayes theorem. Why? We have been given some information about detailed test given success. These are called prior probabilities. Using this prior information, I want to find out a posterior probability. I am interested in predicting success given detailed test. Interested in predicting success given detailed test. So, it is inverting this probability, hence application of Bayes theorem. Now, let us construct a table. success, unsuccessful, detailed test, no detailed test, a table comes there. These are the possibilities. 100 wells are there. In this table, I have to fill up the entry. Each entry, for example, this entry 24, which is written here, let me erase all this. I say I have no entry here. I have no entry here. Nothing. So this table, 100, this I can put. Anybody in the world can put. Even a child can do. Why not we? Just a table, we have put that. Now, a question comes. What does each cell represent? Just a little while ago, we thought, we talked about association and contingency table. You have done some exercise. This cell is detailed test and success. This cell, detailed test and unsuccess. This cell, no detailed test and success. This cell, no detailed test and unsuccess. You all agree? Association. Now I have to find out what is this number. So what I do is, I use a basic principle of conditional probability. Detailed test given success is 0.6. If I multiply this with probability of success, what will I get? What will I get? Answer is 24. Detailed test given success into success, will I not get probability of detailed test intersection? Yes. Simple probability. Am I right? So when I multiply this is 0.24. There is a 0.24 probability. Therefore, out of 100 wells, how many is there? 24. So I write 24. Do you have any objection? In other words, if I don't like the formula, 60% of 40% of the wells, you read this sentence, 60% of the successful wells I have had, 60% of 40 will give me 24. Child's play, I can write it there. Now, the second one says, detailed test given unsuccessful, 0.2 into 0.6. That is 20% of 60% is 12, which I write here. Do you have any objection? Then I add here 24 plus 12, 36. Let us come back to that. Now, once you have two entries, I can get the rest of them easily. Once you have two entries, I can get the rest of them, detailed test and this. Am I right or wrong? But still, and this one is given. What is this? This is 40. Success, probability of unsuccess is 60. So I can get all the entries. But now what I am saying, as students and executives, no, I don't agree. I can subtract and get 16. But how do I know? Independently. No detailed test given success. So what is no detailed test given success? 0.4. So I want no detailed test and success. What will I do? This 0.4 I will multiply by 0.6. Am I correct? No detailed test given success. Yeah. 0.4 into 0.4, which will be 60. So by subtraction, this both will tally. Then no detailed test and unsuccessful is 0.8 into 0.6, 48. In other words, I can work out the joint probability by multiplying the conditional probability with the prior probability and enjoy the solution. Suppose you don't want to sound mathematical, interpret this result. 60% of 40, 24. 20% of 16, 12. Balance, my dear friend, I subtract. It's a child's play. No formula. Enjoy the solution. That is intuitive maths. The other one is rule of conditional probability. After all, I put a slide to you. The conditional probability here, A given A intersection B is probability of A into probability of B given A, or probability of B into probability of A given B, whichever. This is a basic rule I put, and I am taking use of that. So the choice is yours. So this is the crux. Once I fill up the table, I look at the question. What is the question? Success given detailed test. Given detailed test, how many wells are there, sir? 36. Success, how many? 24. 24 by 36, 2 by 3. What is 2 by 3? Approximately 67%. 67% bigger than 40%, worthwhile doing. But then there is a caveat, which we are not discussing in this case. It says, sir, success rate means oil will be there. How much oil? If I do all this and you are just jumping with joy, 67% probability, suppose I get only 2 barrels. It's not useful. So, cost considerations come, the yield, number of barrels, cost of drilling, doing all that, cash flow. Will I get 1000 barrels? Because the number of barrels which we get in Narimelam 1 year is the 1 day's barrel in Arabia. So, we have to look at all the things. But a necessary condition is prima facie, is it worth doing a detailed test, non-financially first, but it is not a sufficient condition. Does it make sense to all of you? No? This is the story of the problem. We have not finally come to the financial terms. This exercise, I will give it to you, a very classic problem from Winston and Albright, a nuclear plant expansion, and control L I will put, following our friend's recommendation. Let's see, control L. Okay, now you can read that. The rest of them you read later. The case study focuses 2 major places where the company is considering constructing a nuclear plant. Diablo or Rogers City. Diablo I can construct, Rogers City I can construct. Now what is the problem? The cost of building the power plant is $10 million in Diablo and $20 million in Rogers City. So which is cheaper? Diablo is cheaper. Nuclear plant building. It's a relevant problem. Kalpakkam we have all those things, so relevant. Instead of earthquake we may have a tsunami or something, or Chennai floods, whatever. Now, if the company builds a plant at Diablo, there is a probability earthquake will strike in the next 5 years, something may happen. If the earthquake strikes, you have to terminate the project in Diablo and still build a nuclear plant in Rogers City. In other words, what will be the cost? The $10 million is gone, plus 20 I have to do for Rogers City. So it will be 30 million if the earthquake strikes. The company, based on their data, they believe 20% chance that the earthquake will occur at Diablo. Prior probability, just like successful, unsuccessful. Just see this now, the analogy at Diablo. This is their prior information, not posterior. This probability is posterior here, prior. Now, they consulted a geologist, a lady geologist, a brilliant geologist. I will do it, but my consulting fee is $1 million you have to pay. $1 million. I will predict. I am an expert at Diablo. And the earthquake problem is only in Diablo. The geologist's past record, our friend, your question comes. That's why I am asking you to pay attention. The geologist's past record, just see this, she will predict earthquake on 95% of the occasions for which an earthquake will occur. In other words, probability of the geologist predicting earthquake given earthquake is 95%. She will predict earthquake 95% of the occasions for which an earthquake will occur. Probability geologist predicting earthquake given earthquake is 95%. And similarly, no earthquake she will predict 90% of the occasion for which no earthquake. Probability of geologist predicting no earthquake given no earthquake is 90%. You get the point? That is the wording. But what we want is probability of earthquake given geologist predicting earthquake. Ulta. Bayes theorem application comes. Will come to all the calculation will come. First, the sentence, because he has asked a very valid question. This example will clarify a little better that sharper point. that I'm hiring, if I have to hire a geologist's capacity to predict how many times the geologist predicted earthquake when there is an earthquake. So, geologist predicting earthquake, given earthquake is 95%. Geologist predicting earthquake, given earthquake is 95%. That means geologist has gone wrong 5%. Geologist predicting no earthquake, but there is earthquake 5% of the time. Similarly, geologist predicting no earthquake, given no earthquake is 90%. 10% of the time, geologist predicted foolishly earthquake when there is no earthquake. So the table is there. Now the question to you is, should you hire the power company, hire the geologist? Yes or no? If so, what is the cash flow? What is the balance of convenience? Overall basis, should I hire the geologist? Question 1. Question 2. If I hire the geologist and geologists predict earthquake, should I build the plant or not? If geologists predict no earthquake, should I build the plant at Diablo or not? All these things you will have to battle and produce a result, group assignment for you. I am explaining the group assignment, and a little bit extra work you may have to do, and some decision table, decision tree, all those ifs, buts and all that you do, and the penetrating questions which you ask amongst yourselves and discuss and produce a masterpiece. That is your assignment for this residency. A group assignment. You get the point? It's there in the class exercise. We will do that for you. You get the point? Write original answers and try to see your perspective. Some of them will see that. Okay? Is it clear to you? Now see the application of Bayes theorem. Floods, earthquake, tsunami. These are all natural things. Every day it will not happen. But we cannot be complacent in Chennai that it has happened after so many years, these Chennai floods. Next 10 years it may happen. So what exactly you have to do? What is the chance? Tsunami every day it will not happen. So that's the point. Application. Okay, gentlemen. So I thought can I again ask you a question? Probability, Bayes theorem, the basic principle, fulcrum, inverting the probability. Is it clear to you? Posterior probability is, I am revising in the light of information. I need the information. Is it clear to all of you? Any doubts you have? Okay. Similarly, I presume for a simple problem, you can work out for a transactions type of application, support, confidence and lift ratio, and interpret the results. If the answer is yes, I will proceed to the probability distribution bell curve and conclude this. Now let me just give you a background, an extension of the probability distribution, and then move to something interesting. Whenever you are studying a topic, the first thing is called curiosity learning. Probability, I know. What is there in distribution of the probability? So you'll have to start like that. Probability distribution. What is distributed? If it is distributed, what is the probability of each distribution? What is it you want? That's the first question. If you understand 50 pages of the book, in 5 minutes you can finish. They will write some sigma, some symbols. All these things have become your second nature. They are not very critical. Probability distribution, what does it mean? You get the point? That's a basic question which you'll have to ask. Now, let me give you an example. Break down history of machine in a factory. Total productive maintenance I am doing, and I have some economic life of the machine. So many years only this equipment will last. If it is rated to last 15 minutes, 15 years, supposing I don't maintain well, in 5 years it may be useless. If I maintain very well periodic and total productive preventive maintenance, I may be able to extend the economic life even beyond 50. That's why they are doing maintenance. Am I correct? In operations. Supposing there is a history, I have a breakdown here, the number of breakdowns. One more black pen, where is it? Let us search somewhere. I might have. Okay. Let it be there. I will take it. So let's say 0 breakdown, 1 breakdown, 2, tree as an example. Then number of breakdowns. Number of breakdown based on the last, let us say, 1000 days record, or near about 3 years the company. Number of times it has broken. Breakdown 0 occurred how many days out of 1000. So let me write here 1000. Let's say 0 breakdown is a rare thing, some 4 occasions. 1 breakdown, let's say about 300 occasions. 2 breakdown, 600 occasions. 3 breakdown, 96. Now probability there is a 0 breakdown, let's me call it as probability of B, breakdown. Breakdown is B. 4 divided by 1000. 300 divided by 1000. 600 divided by 1000. 96 divided by 1000. Total probability 1.0. Now, this is probability distribution. Data I have on breakdown. Empirically, I have got the evidence, and based on this, I estimate the probability. 4 by 1000 is 0.04, not 4, then 0.3, 0.6, and 0.096. Your total is 1.0. So this is called the probability distribution. The probability distribution is a complete list of all variables the random variable can assume. All values the random variable can assume with probabilities assigned to each of the values. A complete list. And this distribution is called probability distribution. And this is also a discrete probability distribution. Why do you say discrete? Because there is no breakdown in between 0 and 1. 0.7 breakdown, if you ask me, then it's a problem. A new rule we'll have to create. It cannot be in between 1 and 2, there is no breakdown. Supposing I say is 1.5 by average I am getting out of let us say 1000 days, then in 2000 days I'll have to write it as 15 or 30. The reason is it doesn't make sense. Success, 1.5 success, sir. Can you say what is 1.5 success? New rule will have to come. So it is discrete. What does it mean? Only counting. In between I cannot have a number. So it's a probability distribution, discrete. I am basing it on observed data which I have, and hence it is called observed probability distribution. It's called observed probability distribution. That I have observed in the plant. So it's called observed probability distribution. You agree with me? So in simple terms they say observed distribution. Let me give you another example. There is a complaint that Pepsi Cola, when I buy outside, it is supposed to have 250 ml. There is some tolerance, 250 plus minus 2 ml. Either somebody in your plant before it is shipped to the store, he just opens by some gadget, he sips something and keeps a little less, or the retail store where I am buying is doing some mischief. It is less. Somebody complains. It's below the neck and it's less. A complaint goes to the cola company. Now, there is a tolerance, let's say 248 ml to 254 is accepted. Less than 248 means I have to take action. So what the plant does is they just say before shipping, let us find out the volume of cola it contains in 1000 bottles. I take some sample. Let's say 5000 bottles I take. And I test it. What is the volume? I note down. Then I put the range. Between 244 ml to 246, how many bottles are there? 246 to 248, 248 to 250, 250 to 252. I actually record the number of bottles whose volume is in this range, all the 5000. Then I find out using the same method what is the probability that the cola filled in the 250 ml will actually have 244 to 246. Oh my dear friend, 30%, 40%, you calculate. It is called data driven probability, observed probability distribution, because I am observing it based on data. Observed probability distribution. That I have observed. And in simple terms, sometimes you use the word observed distribution. Observed distribution. This is a term you are using. Okay. Now, every time, every organization all the time may not be able to have observed pattern. Therefore, there are three outstanding distributions which are considered theoretical or standard distributions which can approximate many real life problems. There are three: the binomial distribution, the Poisson distribution, and the normal distribution. The binomial and Poisson are similar to this discrete. It will find out discrete values or continuous values. Now let me give you an example of the three situations. Normal distribution is a continuous distribution. A credit card company, bank, has observed from past, let's say 60% of the people pay the card bill upon receipt of the bill by email or letter, whatever, on time. 40% are defaulters. They take time, more time, fine and all that. Now the bank is interested in finding out, supposing I pick up some 40 customer accounts at random, what is the probability 0% has paid on time, 1% has paid on time, 3, 4, all the 40 have paid on time. I generate a distribution. I use the binomial distribution where I define success is equal to payment on time. Failure is equal to 1 minus payment on time. And then I work out the famous Bernoulli trials and compute it in Excel or R, whatever, a very simple thing. And it tells a story to the credit card. And all these are available in the slides and as well as your thing. But I am not going to focus on that, but I am just giving you the application. This is one application. So I deal with a dichotomous situation, success or failure, a binary type of operation where I need to use the binomial distribution. The famous mathematician Bernoulli discovered it. Lot of applications. Supposing from the past, in a marketing experiment, I have an idea that 30% of the people remember the ad. Always. It's a success. 70% don't remember. Supposing I go to 20 consumers now and do a study, how many consumers will remember the ad? 0 consumers, 1 consumer, 2 out of the 20, so that I can change my marketing strategy. Binomial distribution is used. This is one application. And the second one is the Poisson distribution. P-O-I-S-S-O-N. It's not Poisson. Poisson. Poisson distribution says defects. Binomial says percentage defective. Poisson deals with defects. This laptop is a defective laptop if it has 1 or more defects. So, supposing keyboard is not alright, the hard disk crashes, resolution of the screen is not there, I am not able to see anything properly, there is a blurring, and the software failure, virus, all this, whatever, physical defects, let's say, the product cannot be shipped. So, the company is interested in reducing, let's say Dell, is reducing the defective laptops to go to the market. So the defective is a binomial, but I cannot reduce the defective laptop unless I reduce the defects per laptop. The defects per laptop is Poisson, the famous Poisson distribution application. That is based on average rate of success. Binomial is based on rate of success. Binomial is based on success. Now, in a textile mill, ready-made shirts I sell. People in the past would have understood in my time, Binni, Buckingham, Carnatic, the mills was here. There was a friend and we will buy some seconds there from the factory itself. Some friend was there. Some overthread or some small defects, but you will get it at a throwaway price. Beautiful cloth, and then we give it to some tailor, and we used to enjoy different things in the college days. Absolutely throwaway price. But they cannot sell it. Why? Defect. The number of defects per meter of the cloth, is it thread separation? Is it color mistake somewhere, small spot, or black spots, or greasy surface? All this will make the cloth cannot be sold. But we don't mind. So, defects per meter, unless I reduce, I cannot reduce the beautiful ready-made shirts with the Liberty or Bonds or whatever is what is that? Today St. Louis, whatever the combination, or Peter England. You buy 2 shirts, I will give you 1 free, whatever. They will not use the cloth that is defective. It has defects. You get the point? That is Poisson distribution application. The third application, in waiting time, I use the Poisson arrival rate. How many cars or vehicles pass through the toll gate during peak hours is based on waiting time model, where arrival rates are assumed to be so many arrivals per minute or per hour, Poisson distribution. So the binomial and Poisson have a lot of applications which are fairly simple and easily we can read. But both are discrete. I cannot find out in between a number 1.5 success or this. This is binomial and Poisson. Then comes the mother of all distribution. Of course, exponential, Weibull, so many are there. The mother of all distribution, which we should master, is the famous Gaussian normal distribution, the bell curve, which is the critical component. The other two you can read from the book and understand, and some numericals we will give you which you can solve easily. But I want to take you to the glorious distribution, the milestone, which is the normal distribution, and let me cover it at length and explain every factor of that. What is so great? We had also dealt with something in the class, if you recollect very carefully, in the very first day, that is yesterday, the empirical rule and why normal distribution is preferred over everything and what is so great about it, the normal distribution. We explained that fixing standards, because of the property of symmetry, I can easily fix standards for my performance. The most important being the other application, whether a system or process is disturbed by some assignable reasons or causes, only the normal curve can help me. Distortion to normality means there is something fundamentally going wrong. You get the point? Normal distribution. So normal distribution, very useful. Empirical rule we have already done. You have also written a couple of questions, multiple choice, all those you have done, and I recall that yesterday. Now let us go into this. This is discovered by Gaussian, the famous mathematician, and it is called a bell curve because it looks like a bell. Statisticians call it a bell curve. When I say bell, it should be the traditional bell in a temple or a church, twine, twine, that bell, and not the calling bell which is square shaped, kaku, kaku, when you press it at home. That is not the bell. It's a bell curve. This is the one. So you should not mistake some other design. Oh, it is like this. You are saying bell curve. Please don't come to me. This is the bell. This is the cornerstone of statistical inference. The entire quality control, mission capability, process capability, and voice of the customer, everything will come to a grinding halt without the assumption of this magnificent distribution, the bell curve. You can do nothing without the bell curve. That's the reality. Hypothesis testing, I can't do. Some assumption, if it is not a bell curve, I will use some central limit theorem and I will say sampling distribution is a bell. Most of the time, this is the case, the bell curve. So, when it is not a bell, what should I do? We will discuss that. It's a bell curve. It's an extremely important application. Hypothesis testing, statistical inference, estimation. You can do nothing without the bell curve. Very critical. Marketing experiments, advertisement platforms. How do I maximize the traffic into the departmental store? What standards? Everything depends on the bell curve. That is why sometimes organizations are so intoxicated with the bell curve, they force a bell curve on you. And it doesn't work. As I told you yesterday, it has to be a natural bell. If it is not, you have to find out the reasons and then make it a bell. And then establish standards. Your Six Sigma, 3.4 defects per million opportunities. 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And in normal thing, you call it as a ppm, parts per million. But if it is not a physical defect, it is still a defect. Opportunities definition, 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Your Six Sigma is based on a bell curve assumption. 3.4 defects per million opportunities. If the consumer does not like the shape of the motor car, it is a defect. So, Six Sigma, the black belt, master black belt, green belt, champion, spa, everything full of belt depends on again normal distribution. You can do nothing otherwise. This matrix of 3.4 has no meaning. What does it mean? 99.99966% of the probability or times you are sending material without any defect. Only 0.33 344 something times only you have error, and that when converted into million, it becomes 3.4. That's the standard people would like to achieve. So in a software also, out of 1 million codes, you should commit only mistakes in 3.4 million code out of the 1 million. That's the standard. So Wipro, some companies have achieved, some of them are doing. So in service also they are coming to this thing. And it's based on the bell curve. Again, coming back to that, without bell, it's not possible. This standard itself is based on bell curve. Isn't it? So bring it to a bell curve, not force it. Assignable cost is removed, bring it to that. So normal distribution is the most critical distribution. And let us look at some of the properties of the normal. Mean, median, mode. The one and only distribution, which is first of all, mean, median, mode, all are equal. Of course, it is a continuous distribution. You can handle fractions as one property, but mean, median, mode, all are friendly with each other, all are equal. The tallest point is the mode, arithmetic mean is the mean, mu, and the median is the middlemost, which divides this into two parts. Therefore, median is the is equal to mean is equal to mode. Most secular of all distributions. All the three are equal. No fight. So, in the concept of, in a lighter vein, if I have to say, we can follow secular concept by following the role model of normal distribution. Mean, median, mode, all are friends, my dear. They don't fight. They're all equal. That's the beauty of normal distribution. And the only distribution. Then it is symmetrical about its mean value. We have already told yesterday the empirical rule. One standard deviation departure, approximately 68% of the data points will fall. Within 2 standard deviation departure from the mean, approximately 95% of the data points will fall. Within 3 standard deviation departure from the mean, 99.7 percentage points will fall. The Gaussian normal bell curve. Arithmetic mean only. Mean means arithmetic mean. Geometric mean will have to be separated. Geometric mean is a logarithm of the variables. Supposing I have log sigma, log xi by n is normally sigma log xi by n is the geometric mean. Geometric mean is the log of the numbers divided by n sum, and therefore if a distribution is log normal, then the log normal distribution will have median in logarithm, mean in logarithm, mode in logarithm will be equal to each other. That's the log normal distribution. Ordinary normal, this is the one. So let us not go into something else which will distort, but we will come to that later. We can transform some variable, mathematics, so many things are there, but let's not get involved. Let's focus on the property of the normal distribution. Now, the other property is when the tails are extended, it will run parallel to the horizontal axis. It will not touch the x-axis. Asymptotic property, mathematicians call it. It will run parallel to the x-axis. And therefore, 6 sigma, 7 sigma, 25 sigma you have. 0.9999999. On movie, I think this Vijay is telling some telephone number. The same way, 0.99999. It will go and then it will not become 100. Tails are extended. It will run parallel, asymptotic property. Asymptotic property. The next one, the normal distribution has 2 parameters. You have to describe it, mu and sigma. In the binomial distribution, only one parameter, the probability of success. Poisson distribution also average rate of success lambda. But normal, I will have 2. Mean and standard deviation, and unfortunately or fortunately, mu and sigma, they use the Greek symbol. Let's not fight. You could have used theta, eta or m and l, but they are using it. Let's get used to that, because if you use any other symbol, world doesn't accept. See, integration sign is like this now. Integral, you are saying this. Now, why not like this? They don't agree. So, some other shape. They don't agree to that. So, let's not argue. So, this is mu and sigma are the parameters of the normal distribution. This is the setting. Now, a little bit of academic flavor. You don't have to remember. This is how the density function of the normal comes. It's called the density function because the probability value will have to be integrated over this function, and you don't have to integrate the Excel table or R or textbook will give you. This is the shape. Now, you don't have to remember any of them, but look at sigma is appearing here, mu is appearing there, 2 parameters. And those who are mathematically inclined will say the domain of the bell curve is extending from minus infinity to plus infinity. All real numbers you can, but normally we go 3 sigma to that. Root of 2 pi, pi is 22 by 7, that approximation value, sigma. And if you look at this, it's an elliptic function. In the sense, if I want to prove the total probability is equal to 1, I can give it to you people out of volunteer on your own, you can try. It is a polar transformation you will have to do. But should I remember this? There is no need. But as an academic, it's important to just say anywhere, you just say this is the function. Now, why I have put this to you is neither to impress you, nor to depress you, nor to frighten you, but to say something we can learn from this. Supposing x is a variable measured in centimeter, I will have one normal distribution probability. Supposing x is measured in temperature, I need to have another normal distribution probability table. Supposing x is measured in foot-pounds to measure the torque pressure, again I need another. In other words, there may be several scales are possible for a variable x depending on the situation. So should I have to generate so many normal distribution tables? That was the problem once upon a time people were facing. Today you have a computer, you don't need to worry. The second one is Fisher later has discovered an z-test where this x minus mu by sigma is used by Fisher. Z-test it's called. So what people thought that I cannot go on generating hundreds and hundreds of probability tables. You have got an application where diameter is a centimeter and I have to work it out. So they said, can I make this a pure number? So that regardless of the scale you have used, whether it is temperature or dollar or something, I can reduce them to a number, pure number, which has nothing to do with the scale, the famous standardized normal. So what I standardize is, I define Z or Z to say in the American style or the British style is Z, zebra you are saying, zest you are saying in English, so both are accepted. Zebra is ZTV, you don't say ZTV, but zest and zeal, zest. So zest is Z. So if Z is let equal to x minus mu upon sigma. In other words, what I do in the previous one is, this part I make x minus mu by sigma as Z. Then what happens is, this exponent becomes Z square. It's easy for me. Now this is a pure number. Why? Numerator, let us say, is in centimeter. Standard deviation also will be in centimeter. Centimeter cancels, pure number. So you give me anything, I can calculate, and this is called a standardized normal variable whose mean is always 0 and standard deviation is 1. In other words, the original distribution here you are expressing in Z units. X is the original distribution, but I am expressing that in Z units by standardizing it x minus mu by sigma. So in a sample study in analytics, you will subtract x minus x bar by standard deviation. Because the units are different scales. So this is the standardized variable where the center point mu becomes 0 units in Z and everything else is same. It is only transformation of scale and origin. In other words, the original normal distribution, I am expressing it in Z units so that I can perform the calculations. But today, Excel or R anything can deal with this directly. I can do it in Z, I can do it with the original also. The software capability has phenomenally improved. Long ago, so long ago, that luxury was not there. And if you are writing a black belt or a green belt exam, Indian Statistical Institute for some American exam, which you have to write in Bangalore, they will give you a calculator and a table only. The luxury of computer, Excel, all that will not be there. You will have to do it. And therefore, this Z only will help you. There the Z table, if you don't know, I want Excel, no, they will say get out, no exam. You have to do it. Here, come on. So, there are two purposes. Therefore, I am introducing that. Let me just show you that. So, this is the setting. We will take one example, how that example is done in Excel, then how that example can be done in R, and what are the balances of convenience. The world was plunged into darkness when the original distribution is not a bell curve. You are just giving Bharat Ratna Padma Bhushan. My dear friend, original is not a bell. What should I do? People said, original population need not be normal, but sampling distribution of the mean is a Gaussian curve, the Lindeberg-Levy's famous central limit theorem, all roads lead to Rome, all distributions will become normal when sample size is large, the famous milestone landmark discovery called the Lindeberg-Levy's theorem in central limit theorem. So I have an escape route now. Sample size is large, more than 30, mota moti, definitely I can assume central limit theorem. What it says? Regardless of the shape of the original distribution, let it be a camel, let it be a donkey, anything. If I pick up a random sample every time, a size n, and compute the mean, the distribution of the mean is a Gaussian normal, no matter what the original shape was, a fantastic asymptotic property distribution by Lindeberg-Levy, two Russian mathematicians, called the central limit theorem. So, you have. That means why that person discovered the central limit theorem with a large sample? Because without normal, I may not be able to do a problem. Not always, but I have to. So this is the setting. Let us look at a numerical, how it works. A very simple problem. Here sigma is 1. So this will be 1 upon 1 root 2 pi e to the power minus z minus 0 whole squared by 2. So sigma will not be there. But mathematically, if I have to prove, Jacobian of the transformation will come. So I want to avoid that. Simple. The previous one is x minus mu by sigma, sir. Now here it has got sigma is here. Here also there is a sigma. X minus mu is there. Now x minus mu by sigma becomes z. I can write this as e to the power minus z minus 0 whole squared by 2 divided by 1 upon 1 root 2 pi. So sigma is 1, mean is 0 always. Okay. Now let us look at this problem. Now when you are having a normal distribution, before you start a software or Excel, all those things are secondary. They will be in the step 2. Step 1 will be understanding the problem and drawing the diagram. Since all of you are engineers, it may not be drawn to the scale, but how do we visualize this problem? Okay, let's now do that.
The mean weight of a morning breakfast cereal pack is 0.295 kilos with a standard deviation of 0.025 kilos. The random variable weight of the pack follows a normal distribution.
First question, read.
First one is, what is the probability that the pack weighs less than 0.280 kilos?
Yeah. What is the next one?
The second one is, what is the probability that the pack weighs more than 0.35 kilos?
The third one.
And the last one is, what is the probability that the pack weighs between 0.26 kilos to 0.340 kilos?
This is a question. A step-by-step method. How do we solve this problem? Then we will introduce some nuances. Let us draw the diagram. Less than 0.28, this is a diagram. Less than 0.28, they are not drawn to scale, but I am just saying 0.295 is the mean, 0.025 is the standard deviation. So less than 0.28 is in the left of the mean. All of you agree? A simple graph. Now, there is a question which I will put to you. What is the probability? We said it is less than 0.28. What is the probability that the weight is equal to 0.28? What is the probability that the weight is equal to 0.28? What is the probability that the weight is equal to 0.28? Probability weight x is equal to 0.28. Less than 0.28, the question is asked. Entire class, person there, tell me. Wonderful. Why do you say 0? At a point is 0. Why at a point is 0? Because continuous distribution. For a continuous distribution, it is enough if you say probability less than 0.28. But Poisson, binomial and all, less than 5, less than or equal to 5, they are not same. But here, it's enough. 0.28, less than 0.28 is same as less than or equal to, doesn't make a difference. So in other words, it is the area of the curve. It's a cumulative probability. It is not a simple probability. It is the area of the curve. The area of the curve is a Riemann integral where the area is computed not the individual point. So this area in the normal distribution is wanted, so it is a cumulative concept. The probability of a continuous distribution is always cumulative because it works out the area of the curve. You get the point? Less than 0.28 means all up to 0.28 it will include. This is the area. Okay. Now let us now crack this problem. So I use Z just as a matter of interest to you. So if I convert Z is equal to x minus mu by sigma, what is this part? Minus 0.6. What is the center point? It will be 0. 0.295 minus 0.295 into 0. So the area of x less than 0.28 is same as the area Z less than minus 0.6. You all agree? Z less than minus 0.6. Do you agree with that? Hello. If I express this distribution as Z units, what I mean by that is, let me draw the diagram and explain this to you. Supposing this is 0.295 and let's say this is 0.28. This is my x. If I express this in Z units, this will be 0.28 minus because Z is equal to x minus mu upon sigma. This is minus 0.6. This is a 0. So when I express it as Z units, the area less than 0.8, x less than 0.8 is same as Z less than minus 0.6. And I will show you first in Microsoft Excel. There are 4 functions in Excel. Norm.dist, norm.s.dist, norm.inv, norm.s.inv. These are all functions available in Excel, and Excel follows a rule. It computes the cumulative probability up to a point. That is, whenever I have a normal distribution, I draw the diagram and I want the area, let's say it's here, x is here, it computes the cumulative up to x. X may be on the right of the mean or the left of the mean. For example, another situation, I may have something like this now here, where this is the mean, my x is here. So it always computes the cumulative probability left or right of the mean, it gives that in Excel. That's a convention. Now sometimes you want more than x, you should subtract from 1 the cumulative probability up to x, when x is positive ordinate on the right of the mean. Okay. I will show you in both Excel and R is even simpler. I will show you that. So now this particular problem, I will solve it using Z and without Z in Microsoft Excel. Be with me. I will just show you here. Now first I will introduce norm.dist. Now from now onwards in the next residency, XLR, R will come more and more, because probability doesn't require so much of a software. It's a more on the conceptual plane, and we need this now. So let me just show you norm. Sometimes I may not remember the function. I want to maximize laziness. Unnecessary, why to remember so much? Insert function. That icon is there. It's waiting for you. It is wanting you to take advantage. It is willing to do. Insert function. In that, statistical. Click statistical. Some old versions will give me norm.dist. So don't get angry with me. Norm.dist also you can put. Now norm.dist they have now introduced. I don't know what they will introduce in future. We'll get used to that. So norm.dist. Now after statistical, you simply type the letter N. You have here norm.dist. There is a norm.dist. Is it there? My dear. Hello. norm dist. Click that. X value diagram. What is the diagram saying? X value. Now, please remember, Excel gives the cumulative up to a point X, whether it is left of the mean or right of the mean. But when it is in the right of the mean, if it is more than X, you have to subtract from 1. Here it is directly, you can read less than this. So, what is the X value here? 0.28. I am using directly the distribution. Then I will come to Z. 0.280. Am I correct? What is the mean, sir? 0.295. What is the standard deviation? 0.025. Then the computer says, is it a cumulative or logical operator? You want a cumulative probability or a simple probability? We just now told normal distribution is cumulative. Am I right? Normal distribution is cumulative. It's never simple, but by mistake or something, you are crazy, you want to tease me or tease the computer. Suppose you put 0. It will give what? Can anyone say? If I put 0, what is the value you are getting? Some absurd to the power infinity, 13.32, which cannot be the probability even for the love of God. What it has done is, it has computed the value of the density fx. It substitutes everything, e power minus x minus mu whole squared by 2 sigma squared 1 upon sigma root 2 pi. If you do it shamelessly, you will get that 13.32. I have checked that, that's why I am telling you. I did all this beforehand. Now you should not do this. Cumulative means logical operator is always 1. You should write it in your notebook. Cumulative probability, if you want in Excel, put 1. Logical operator is equal to true. It will say, and click OK. You get the answer. What is the answer, gentlemen? 0.27425 or 27.43% of the packs will weigh less than 280 grams. 0.28. Is it clear to you? Now I want to use Z. If I use Z, do I get the same answer? Let me go to the second cell here, gentlemen. Insert function. Insert function and go to N. Norm.S.in, is it there? Norm.S.in. Are you able to see? That is standardized normal. Come here. What is the, sorry, norm.not.in. I want norm.S.dist, sorry. Norm.S.dist I have to go. What is the Z I have to do? Minus 0.6. So minus 0.60. Cumulative, of course I have to put 1. Cumulative is 1. All of you with me? You have to do it with me. Don't just listen. You have to do it. Click OK. I get same answer. The choice is yours. Both are available. But when you are doing some multiple choice quiz or some exam, they may not allow. So you should know that. Okay, is it clear, sir? Are you getting it? Minus 0.6 you put is Z. Norm.S.dist. Are you getting it, sir? R doesn't worry Z or anything. That is a different beautiful thing you can do here. But you have to write a small script here. I'll show you R first. If you wish to, I can make this much bigger, or can you see this? Or I can put here tools and global options I go. For your information and clarity, font size, I can make it, let's say 14. So you may be able to see. Let's see here now. I'll write here mu is equal to mu. Do you have any objection? If I create an object, mu is equal to how much? 0.295. Am I correct, sir? Then I'm just writing out of clarity. Otherwise, I can directly do it, but some clarity will be there. Sigma is equal to 0.025. I just put that. If you don't want, you can directly get it. Now, probability less than 0.280 is equal to, I am just writing something, is equal to, in the normal distribution in R, you have what is called two functions. If you want the probability, you have to use P norm. Is a function P norm. If you want the ordinate to return for a given probability, you should use Q norm. So P norm, if I put here, is equal to small p norm, N-O-R-M, N-O-R-M. I have to give the mean. The order will be mean standard deviation. Whether it is lower tail is true, is by default it will take. Otherwise, you will say lower dot tail is false. By default, it will take only lower, exactly like Excel. It has. And P norm, mean and standard deviation, the order in which you give, you will have to specify the mean and standard deviation. So all I put here is P norm within bracket mean, MEAN, is equal to mu. Mu is to be defined, mu, comma, SD is equal to sigma, and I close the bracket. Sigma I'll have to do. Now I have to execute this. First I have to run mu, yes, sigma, yes, probability, yes, SD is equal to sigma. I'll have to put here sigma. Have I run? Yeah. Q is not required. P norm only. Okay, with no default. Sorry, correct. 0.28. Q is equal to 0.28. That is the ordinate. 0.28 comma this. Because I want the probability. So 0.28 less than 0.28 I should give, isn't it? That is missing. Now it will work. See, less than 0.28 I have to specify Q, which is 0.28. Am I correct? Hello. Originally I did not do. Now 0.28, which is less than 0.28, I have to compute. Am I right, sir? Now probability less than, you put here probability less than this. When you execute, what do you get here? The same answer, 0.2742, which you got in Excel. So in the normal, in fact, I need not have put mu, sigma and all that. I can directly write the ordinate, just like Excel, the ordinate, the mean and the standard deviation. That's enough. By default, it will take lower dot tail. Otherwise, you have to change it. So if you feel like, you can even write like this, the first probability, even then I will get the answer. I'll just show you here. So in one line, you say probability of less than 0.28 equals, for example, P norm of 0.28 comma 0.295 comma 0.025. Even then I will get the answer. The order in which I say, you'll get exactly the same answer. Can I put that? Yeah. Now I can execute, or I can simply put P norm. Let me remove this. P norm of this 0.27. Directly I can get if you want to. But I've just written some code just like that. You can get this. So it's the same function. There is no complexity. Straight away you'll get the answer. Now let me show you the second part of the case here. What is the probability? It is more than, hello, what is the probability? It is more than 0.35. More than 0.35 is how much? This side. So in Excel, we have to give the same function norm, this either Z or original, up to 0.35. I have to subtract it from 1. Am I right? I have to. So if you are using Excel, you give norm dot dist 0.35 ordinate, then mean 0.295, standard deviation 0.025, then you have to subtract it from 1, because this gives you the probability of the right hand tail you want. So 1 minus this, you can just do that. You will get that. Just do that. Huh? 1.4 will not come, sir. Yeah, okay, you got it. Okay, you got that, isn't it? So let me show it to you in R. Now, the reason for my doing it, every time you have to write this. So let me just put here P norm of, what is that here? 0.350, comma, 0.295, comma, 0.025, comma, lower dot tail is equal to false. Upper. I don't have to subtract, it will directly do. Lower dot tail is equal to false. If I do katak, I get the answer. Lower dot tail is equal to false. It's not true. By default, it is true. If I say false, it will automatically compute the upper tail. I don't have to subtract from 1. In Excel, you'll have to subtract from 1. Even if you write a formula, you'll have to subtract it from 1. This is the power of R. Lower dot tail is equal to false. Now, how do you do the last part? Can anyone say? Make a guess. Excel, the last part, between 0.28 and 0.34, 0.26 and 0.34. So, the area will be up to 0.34 minus up to 0.26. You'll have to do. Am I right? Area up to 0.34 minus area up to 0.26 will be between. I don't have to subtract from 1 now. What you want is less than 0.34, that is 1. Less than 0.26. Therefore, what you do is 0.34 minus 0.26 will give this area. Okay? You got that? So in X, are you getting it? Yeah. Now, R, you do the same thing here. Why don't you write it in R? P norm 0.340, comma 0.0295, sorry, 0.295, comma 0.025 minus P norm 0.260, comma 0.295, comma 0.025. Close the bracket and do this now. You get the answer. 0.8833. Am I correct? Hello? Serious. Okay. Now a question I put to you into the class. I give a slightly different perspective. What should be the weight of the pack produced? What should be the weight that 90% of the packs would have exceeded? What should be the weight of the cereal pack which would have been exceeded by 90% of the packs produced? In other words, the same data you assume. So what you do primarily is the same data. This is 0.295. Let's say the X is here. This area must be 90%. So what is the weight? In Excel, you can use the norm.inv function and declare the probability. 90% of the packs would have exceeded this weight, means 10% of the packs would have got less than this weight. So you give 0.1 in that norm.inv and enter the probability 0.9. The same data, mean standard deviation. Please do that norm.in. Tell me what answer you get. So let me just go back to Excel, what you are saying. Okay, first one is the probability is 0.10. Mean is 0.295. Standard deviation is 0.263 grams. 0.263. 263 grams is the weight which 90% of the packs would have got more. Isn't it? So let me go to R and show you. P norm, Q norm, you have to put Q norm 0.9 probability, comma 0.295, comma 0.025, comma lower dot tail is equal to false. 0.2629 directly you are getting. Lower dot tail is equal to false and you are getting this. You get the answer. So marrying R and Excel as the greatest partners, married couple who will never have divorce. So that's what I'm saying to say. So easy. So R. And of course there are very interesting problems you can do in R. If I want to generate a table of weights with different probabilities, I can generate a table and different weights I can do in R. In other words, supposing I just put here 0.9 and all that. So if I put here, let's say, is equal to sequence of 0.05, I'm just saying 90% of the packs, supposing I start with 30% of the packs to this, let's start with 30% of the packs, comma 0.95, I stop there, by is equal to 0.05, range, okay, I declare this, and then I say Q norm, comma 0.295, comma 0.025. I can get all the ranges, weights, different weight for range. Then if I declare data.frame, I can get a table. Data.frame, different weights, I can directly generate a table. You can do that. The different weights, different probabilities, starting from 30%, how many packs will do, it's giving you the range. Sorry, I'll have to give lower dot tail is equal to false. I'm sorry. Upper tail you want, so lower dot tail is equal to false. 1 minute, that's a small mistake. Lower dot tail is equal to false. If I do that, these are the weights. In other words, I can generate a data.frame by giving an object data.frame of weight comma range. I put, it will give a beautiful table. That's what is depicted here. So different ranges, different probabilities, what is the weight, by a single command I can get in R. That's the power. No, I will tell you. In the Excel, I double click here, norm.inv, 10% of the packs would have got less than this 0.1, I put instead of 0.9. In R I can put 0.9 and the lower dot tail is equal to false, and then I enter 0.295 and 0.025, it comes that. That's it. Now I will answer a question. Somebody asked, hello, how do you say area of the curve is a probability in a continuous distribution? Let me just to the extent possible I'll simplify. In this distribution, let's say f of x represents the normal distribution, which is with this specification. X is this, mu is 0.295, sigma is this. Let's assume this fx is returned in the standard form which you have got there. Now I want less than 0.28, so it is minus infinity to 0.28 f of x dx, where specified like that. So it's the area of the curve. It's a Riemann integral. I am calculating the probability of x less than 0.28 is equal to integral of minus infinity to 0.28 of this function. See, the function is here, sir. I will just show you this again. What Excel is doing is that only precisely here. Now I want the probability here. Mu is 0.295. Sigma is 0.025. I substitute there and integrate this function from minus infinity to 0.28, because when I want the probability, I will have to integrate the function, and Excel does the job for us, or R. We will leave it to the mechanical slaves called Excel and R and enjoy the solution. Otherwise, we will have to do numerical integration and do that. No, area of the curve is the integration. That's what I'm saying. Integration is the area of the curve. It's called the area of the curve. Total area is 1. for a normal distribution, the bell curve, this entire area is 1, sir. Entire area is 1. Out of that, how much this will constitute is what you are trying to find out. The total area is 1. Yeah, 0 in a continuous distribution. Why? Because I have to integrate 0.28 to 0.28. It will be 0. I answer that. You are an engineer. So, what is the integral 0.28 to 0.28 fx dx? 0. Because I have to integrate, the range is 0.28 to 0.28. It has to be 0. Of course, you have to say it has to be 0, and you should say with a tumultuous noise which can be heard by security guard who will have to be disturbed. With so much of noise, you should say 0. I integrate 0.28 to 0.28, the same thing. I can construct a table where the pack weight, what should be the weight of the pack, which 30% of the packs produced will exceed, 35 will exceed, 40%, 50% up to 100%. I generate a table. Yeah, I have written no sequence of this. Bi is equal to 0.05. Bi is equal to 0.05. That's a command I wrote. Because you are all sultans and great people, I don't want to. It's a simple thing. Bi is equal to this. Bi means I am splitting the whole thing monotonically in the steps of 0.05. Sequence of 0.3, 0.95, bi is equal to 0.05 means 0.3, 0.35, 0.4 up to 0.95. Thanks a lot.
In this session, we will talk about what is probability distribution and how can you implement probability distribution using Python, and what is the concept behind the probability distribution as well. If you want to learn more advanced topic like this, please subscribe our channel, that is Great Learning, and if you want to do some courses on this topic as well, please visit Great Learning Academy, where you will get almost 80 plus free courses, and after completing your course you can claim your certificate as well. Thank you so much.